Hi, and thank you for joining the 5th episode of the Americas FIXinar series. This episode will be conducted under the enhanced Chatham House ruling, which means quote checking policy will be in place. If you would like to quote any of the comments that are made today, please get in touch with the programme office. If you would like to ask a question to the panelists or raise your hand, you can do so using the functions at the bottom of your screen. I'd like to hand over now to Steve Kelly, who is the moderator for this episode, which is Blockchain for Repo, What Next for the Industry. Over to you, Steve.
Okay, great. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, thanks everyone, and thanks for the intro. Thanks everyone for joining for your time today for this great discussion on blockchain for repos. So just so you know, the purpose of this panel is really to provide you all with information about processing and automating repos. So as you know, the repo process is still very manual. It causes for really high risk, inefficiency. So the goal is really to provide some practical roadmap to automate the lifecycle of repos. So my name is Steve Kelly, and I'll be moderating this great panel of experts today. And we're going to ask each of the panelists some questions around the challenges and solutions that they have been involved with for automating repos. Now, each of the panelists will provide a little bit more details around how they leverage blockchain and different technologies. And at the end, we'll leave some time for questions. One of the things, so for myself also, I'm also the chair of the Fixed Trading Community Repo Working Group, which we'll talk about this a little bit in the panel, but we developed some best practices for automating the repo lifecycle with existing fixed messages. And recently, also, I recently helped develop a repo trading platform here at CME, where we automated the entire lifecycle of repos utilizing Fix. And I've supported repos in various roles in my career with more of a focus on post-trade. So believe me, I know all the pain. I've been doing this for a long time. It seems frustrating at times, but it's really getting there, especially for repos. And we face those challenges within CME and develop this platform. So before we get to the panel, we do have a couple of polling questions to kick off that we'd like to, get your feedback before we kick off with the panel. So with that, the first polling question we want to understand is what percentage of your repo lifecycle processing is currently automated? And we have, you can just add in a percentage. Just wanted to get a rough idea where people were. We'll give that a minute. Okay, so this is great. So looks like around generally 31% of the respondents here, 25% was already automated. So you can see there's still quite a bit that is still fairly manual. Sort of the general premise is what we've heard back, feedback. Okay, perfect. That was helpful. The next question is, how far are you in the development or build of blockchain or DLT technology for securities processing? And we have a couple of already live, going live, initial development, or not yet considered. So specifically around blockchain. Again, we'll give that a minute. Okay, what do we got? Seems like not many yet. Okay, so this is great. This is really interesting. So I think this will really tie in good with the panel, where we'll get a little bit more info for everyone around where blockchain stands. So with that, we'd like to introduce the panel. So we had Vinod Jain. He's from IT Novarica Group, and he's the senior analyst in capital markets there. We have Marina Kutrazeva. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, Marina, who's the head of distributed ledger technology at ExactPro, and Horatio Barakat, who's the head of digital innovation at Broadridge. So it's a great panel that I'll have some fantastic experience with DLT, blockchain, and specifically repos. So with that, we'd like to kick it off. We first want to start with Vinod. I understand that you are currently working on some research around blockchain and distributed ledger technology. So hoping you can share some of your findings and where you think the industry is headed.
Sure. Thank you so much, Steve. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the globe. I think that's fantastic. I think the first question which you had, which signifies that almost 70% of the respondent mentioned that the automation is less than 50% in the entire processing. And I think that gives the deep dive into the research angle, which I'm also doing it, is to say that there's enough scope to bring efficiency in the current process, either in terms of cost reduction, making the things better, cheaper, and faster. So that's one part of it, which is upcoming. The second one is also the new world of the DLT platform, which is upcoming. And I think majority of them, they're building up either the systems or enhancing the process, procedures, everything to be able to adapt the new technology. The challenge which everybody looks at it is how do you build the bridge between the two? And I think that's the key part of it, is to say that how do you build the bridge? Because you don't want to build a bridge which doesn't go anywhere. Or you don't want to build a bridge over a river which could reroute the directions and then the bridge is of no use. So I think that's the angle of the research which I'm taking on those, to say that there are two worlds of this post-trade processing. One is bringing efficiency in the current process, and second is adoption to the new technology platforms. And how do you build a bridge between the two? The second aspect which comes along with it is how do you get onto the bridge? I think that's the key aspect of it, is to understand that whether you would replace the existing technologies, whether you would enhance the existing technologies, or you would completely discard the existing technology and build a new set of technologies to be able to get onto the bridge. And the third one is the most important one, which says that how much weight can you carry when you're going over the bridge? And when I refer down to the weight, it means that all the functions which you are performing in the current world, how much of it would you like to carry on to the new world? And I think that's a key aspect of it, trying to understand that what automation would bring in, what are the new functions which you would have to adopt after you cross over the bridge on the other side, and what are the functions you need to leave on the current processing world. So I think those are the three research angles which I'm looking at in terms of adoptions to the various operating models for digital assets.
Okay, that's great. Hey, Vinod, just on that, the two, maybe you don't want to say, but sort of timing of when this research, when do you think it'll come out with some results? Do you have a time frame in mind?
Yes, this research will be published in Q4 of this year. So it should be in the next couple of months.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thanks, Vinod. So next we'd like to turn to, we'll start with Marina. So at ExactPro, I understand that you've been working on a bunch of DLT projects. Hoping you can give us a little overview of some of those projects and what you found.
Yes, sure. Hello, everyone. Just to provide the context of the work we are doing, ExactPro specializes in functional and non-functional testing for complex distributed financial technology platforms that are used by stock exchanges and other financial institutions globally. The work we are doing around DLT is software testing and test automation. Some projects are focused on testing the DLT framework itself. In this respect, our team is quite experienced with the testing of R3 Corda. We are doing functional and non-functional testing of both the enterprise and open source versions. Apart from testing the DLT framework per se, we are involved in interesting projects in exchanges in Australia, Switzerland, and in the UK.
Okay, great. Thanks, Marina. And Horatio, certainly not last, but what? So I understand that you at Broadridge you've developed a new platform for repo trading, leveraging the benefits of blockchain. So same thing. Can you provide us with an overview of your platform?
Yes, absolutely. And Steve, thank you very much for having me. Absolutely. So we after 2 or 3 years of working and co-innovating with our clients as Broadridge, a financial technology provider, as you know, to the overall fixed income industry and capital markets overall. We were able this past June to actually launch our distributed ledger repo platform that basically is is aiming to transform the 10 trillion global bilateral repo market. And how we're planning on doing that is making the front to back process much more efficient than it is today, bringing automation to it, and also significantly reducing operational risk, and hopefully via the digitization of the collateral, increase the liquidity of the market. So that is in a nutshell what we were able to launch, and we have various participants already processing and executing repo transactions on the platform. That makes us very, very happy. But if you break down the platform and the benefits that it brings, operationally, the platform basically allows counterparties to gain efficiencies using a common data model and utilize a mutualized workflow that allows them to, at every point in time, from the execution of the transactions to settlement and every midlife cycle event in between, to be fully synchronized between their counterparties and their agents. So they are always in sync. And I think this is talking to your lack of automation that Vinod mentioned. It is a key pain point that we're tackling. Secondly, if you go below that operational efficiency and process, if you think about the settlement process, by digitizing the collateral and digitizing the workflow itself, you can actually bring significant efficiencies to the settlement process, therefore increasing the mobility, the velocity of the collateral, and hence the liquidity of the participants. So, very happy that we are live with this platform, and hopefully we can keep up the momentum of the network.
Great, thanks, Horatio. Just one quick question on that, Horatio, too. So the scope of your platform, too, is it trading, post-trade, and through to settlement? Is it the entire life cycle that you're supporting? It is the entire life cycle front to back. Participants, though, let me clarify that. So participants, they are still going to utilize the existing venues or the way that they find liquidity today. The agreement of the transaction in various electronic venues or not, it still happen the way it happens today. After that agreement of the trade, basically our platform allows to capture that information, the information of the trade, and from then on consolidate the workflows in a mutualized workflow, as I said, via digitization, and from then on, from the agreement of the transaction at any electronic venue or via phone or the way that is agreed today, basically allows for the straight-through processing from then on. Right, it doesn't change the liquidity venues. It doesn't change the way people look for liquidity or actually put to work the collateral. So that's what the platform does. And just to clarify a little bit more on how the platform works, is the platform actually leverages existing market infrastructure. So one of the key pieces is the electronic venues where these transactions are agreed upon. We are leveraging that information, and on the back end, we are leveraging existing CSD, clearinghouse, and custodian functionality to basically bring efficiency to the process. We are not disrupting. This is a technology. It's a technology play. It's not a. It doesn't replace the custodial function or the CSD. Perfect. Thanks, Horatio. So just following up on that, and it sort of ties in with that second polling question we had about how many people are actually considering it. It didn't seem like a lot so far. So what would be helpful, I think, Marina, I'll start with you, is in a lot of the projects that you talked about, if you could provide sort of some, what some of the benefits and some of the challenges were, specifically with DLT that you were working with. It seems like a lot of people haven't had a lot of experience with it yet. So anything you provide around benefits and challenges would be great. If you could provide some of that from your perspective.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question because the functionalities offered by DLT as an emerging technology are twofold, bringing both benefits and challenges at the same time. First example of such a benefit is the distributed architecture. While aiding to the overall system resiliency, improving the network's failover capabilities, it's also a source of race conditions and non-deterministic behavior. It's very challenging in terms of testing. It takes a different amount of time to reach different nodes of a distributed network, which is really noticeable with super low latencies. And the challenge is when we send a message, we never know which node it ends up on and what the expected result is. All because in different nodes, the business flow suggests different outcomes. But on the other hand, this challenge is not specific to DLT only. Non-determinism is very common in fintech systems with complex business logic, multiple gateways, protocols, asset types, and lots of inbound and outbound messages. The second example of DLT benefits is providing different visibility on different nodes. This differentiates, for example, Corda framework from other DLT frameworks. There is no single central store of data. Instead, each node maintains its own database of effects that it's aware of. Again, it brings both benefits and challenges. On the plus side, this offers new matching possibilities. The matching is not executed directly, but rather through indication of interest. Only need to know information is revealed. And this approach creates less load on the node. And at the same time, the information is not disclosed publicly and is visible only to those to whom it's relevant. And the challenge here is the reverse side of the benefit. Since we store lots of data on each node, the matching logic is more complex. While a traditional exchange maintains one central source of truth, the market data is shared across a distributed network of separate nodes. However, again, I take as an example Corda framework. This challenge is being addressed by the omniscient ledger functionality, suggesting the existence of a node that stores everything but is invisible to all the participants.
Got it. Thanks, Rita. Just one thing just to follow up. Did you, on the testing side, because you're doing a lot of that in the testing, did you say that was a little bit more challenging or took more testing? Did I get that right?
Well, the point is that it's it's the way how you look at that, because from the on the other hand, it's more challenging because it has some specific on that. But again, do not forget that all the most of the systems in the market infrastructure area are complex and they need some specific approach, and we always need to look at the logic and think how we would approach it.
Okay, got it. Perfect. Thank you. And Horatio, back to you, just sort of the same. And you touched upon some of the benefits that your platform have, but if you could touch again on some of the benefits and challenges you found in your platform, that'd be great.
Sure. So in terms of the benefits that our distributed ledger repo platform brings is, you can sum it up in one word, right? It's digitization. The platform allows for the digitization of the entire process, front to back of the repo transaction, including the collateral. So the fact that you're able to digitize the process and actually have, as I said, everybody working under a single distributed source of information all the time and be able to interact with each other digitally, and the fact that you can approve, reject, and actually agree or disagree on terms or on other things, let's say a collateral substitution when needed, on a digitized way on a shared platform, that brings significant operational efficiencies to the participants, and actually reduces, not only brings those soft efficiencies, but actually reduces the settlement cost, because the settlement process is already digitized. The digitization of the collateral, again, going back to that word, is it allows for the real-time settlement of the transactions, right? So it actually, that increased mobility of the collateral allows counterparties to use their collateral when and where they need it at every point in time, right? Not only, as I said, decreasing the cost of settlement overall, but for front office folks, allows for the increased liquidity of their collateral, right? Which is always something that you have to strive for, but improve collateral management. So that is in a nutshell the benefits driven by digitization. In terms of challenges, as Vinod said, I like the analogy of the bridge, right? You don't want to meet a platform that nobody uses. So the key challenge of every single distributed ledger platform and networks overall, doesn't need to be DLT specifically, is the creation of the development of a network, right? That is the most challenging step that you have to solve for. It is like, I put it as going to a party, right? I'm going to, if you're going, Steve, and Steve is going, only Vinod is going, right? And or everybody goes or nobody goes, right? So what we have devised was various unique use cases that actually incentivize participants to actually join the platform, that they can provide benefits immediately from day one to those participants without the need for them to be on the platform. So as the platform grows with those use cases, then the network will grow and the benefits will grow for all the participants. But you have to bring those initial participants with initial meaningful incentives for people to be attracted to the platform. And that's what we have done. So that's why I think we have been successful at onboarding clients, as you said, recent announcement around our platform.
Okay, great, perfect. It's great background on sort of the both benefits and the challenges. Okay, I'd like to switch gears slightly. Obviously, with blockchain, there has also obviously been a lot of concern around, how it's monitored and regulatory rules around it and stuff. So, Vinod, in some of your research and that you've done, are there current regulations, and specifically for repos or blockchain, that you have come across or that people should be aware of?
There are many angles associated with this, regulatory angles on the digital assets. And I think, frankly, nobody has a complete clarity of what the regulation should be and what the regulations would be over here. And I think given the aspect of the repo, whichever way we do the trading and whichever way we build the technology platform, the product is still reverse repo and repo transactions. They're not, those things are not changing over here. So the movement of the securities and the cash would still be there in different forms. It would be there. I think most of the repo transactions are governed by the JIMRA and the MRA documentation between the two counterparties. Or it could be a tri-party repo or a bilateral repo, or it could be a repo which can go for a clearing at the clearinghouse. Or it could be a Fed repo over here. So I think those nature of transactions would still exist in some form or the other. I think the challenge what comes out is as and when the electronification of the repo trading is going to happen, the whole aspects of identifying what a repo trade is in the internal systems of a bank, those becomes more crucial. I think majority of the firms, when they start a project, the first thing which anybody wants to identify is when they look at a trade, how do they identify whether it's a repo or a reverse repo? Are we moving cash or are we moving securities? And what's the direction of it? And what is the repo rate? And what is the collateral securities haircut actually? I think those are the key elements which goes in that processing portion of it. Along with it, the whole aspects of the pre-trade aspects of the repo trading, the trading aspect of it. And even after the trade has been executed, trying to find out that what the trade needs to be processed for the downstream side. And I think that's where the FIX processing protocol needs to be more strengthened to identify exactly all those various tags so that there's no confusion around that this is a repo trade, that's it. There's no meaningful analysis to be done whether I need to look at an amount which is a negative or a positive to identify which way the cash or the securities are moving actually. And I think whatever gets booked as part of a repo trading activities from a client facing side of it, that needs to be internalized when the repo trade gets mirrored between the two entities within the same bank. I'm talking about the back-to-back repo transactions which gets executed. So there's a client-facing leg, and then the internal entity-facing legs actually. I think that's where the transformation needs to happen more clearly on those sides. Outside of those, then it comes down to what Horatio was referring to was the bridge portion. And I think I was trying to look at the velocity of the collateral. I think what the velocity of the collateral would mean is when you do a repo transaction, you're identifying the need for the liquidity that, yes, you need this cash for tomorrow's settlement. In the today's market, you do a trade today, generally it will be a T+1 or a T+2 settlement. How soon can you get that cash or the securities today itself, actually? I can lend the cash today, but I need the securities also as a collateral today. And I think that's what Horatio is referring to, if I understand it correctly, that when you could identify the need in the morning, you do a trade, and before the end of the day, in the bilateral repo trade, you can get the securities or the cash which is needed for your repo transactions. And I think that will increase the velocity of the collateral. That will also increase the funding liquidity needs, which are driving the repo trading activities over there. I think the last one, which I was also referring, is how far do you want to cross over the bridge multiple times? The bridge is meant two ways. There's no bridge which is one-way bridge, actually. And I think crossing that bridge two-way is the key portion to say that, yes, you could do the trading. So there's no change to the trading activities, the way the repo trading activities work today. Then you do, when you want to do the processing of the trade, you go down, cross the bridge, go on the other side, use the DLT platform, and then come back over here where you can actually settle the repo trading along in the same account which you're holding it with the custody banks. And I think coming down to what Marina mentioned is she would check to ensure that when you're crossing over the bridge, you're carrying the right amount of load which needs to be functioned from one point to other point. And I think that's the way which I'm looking at all the aspects of the conversation.
Okay, great. That's great. It's funny. I know we were talking earlier too, slightly different, but on some of the cryptocurrency exchanges, and I think that's where people get confused. There's some that are registering with the SEC, others are not. So I think there's often some confusion around what sort of regulatory approach people are taking, and they confuse blockchain with sort of cryptocurrency exchanges and things. Right. So it's come up quite a bit. Okay, thanks for that, Vinod. Before we move on to more of the blockchain, one of the things we did just want to mention within the FIX group, and I mentioned at the beginning, we have a FIX repo working group. So again, we just wanted to put that out there so people are aware of it. So it was really, we started this FIX repo working group, again, same because the repos, as we've seen, are very manual. And it was really to try to come up with an alternative technology, existing technology, so not blockchain specifically or DLT, but using existing FIX messaging as a way to automate some of the repo processing. So really what we did is, within the repo working group, is we looked at the gaps. So it was looking at existing FIX messages, and many are aware, obviously, from trading, pre-trade trading and post-trade through to settlement, there are a lot of FIX messages that support that, but no one had really looked at it from a repo perspective. And hence it was very manual. So what we did is really, we spent some time, did a gap analysis, looking at existing FIX messages and what would it take to enhance them to fully support repos. And so we did. So we spent a lot of time on it. We worked in conjunction with within FIX as a security lending working group. There's some overlap with that. Also, just on the last topic that Vinod was talking around the regulatory stuff, there's an SFTR working group which impacted repos. Worked with all of them and the ICMA in Europe around best practices. So we filled in the gaps and we developed, we did this gap analysis, and we came up with two effectively best practice documents. One was around trading repos for bilateral and tri-party, in enhancing those messages, the full suite of messages. And the second was the same thing for bilateral and tri-party, was on the post-trade. So effectively, there is a way to automate utilizing the existing FIX messages, the enhanced FIX messages to support repos. And this includes the full life cycle of events, including, rebates and terminations and substitutions and so on. So that is available, and I think really sort of the next part that, basically the working group we're looking at is through till settlement. And so I think this is where, again, where sort of blockchain comes in as a newer technology that effectively can be leveraged. And we can talk about that in a minute too. Within FIX, there is a digital asset working group that could tie into it. So we just wanted to let people know, so there is, the technology available within FIX, and then, the purpose of this panel is really then how does blockchain as sort of an emerging technology help with that as well. And just as Marina and Horatio talked about all the benefits too, that you can achieve through using it. So given that, one of the things around specifically on blockchains, and this question had come up before from others, is around the advantages and disadvantages of a public versus a public blockchain. And so, Horatio, I'll start with you. Have you looked at this? Do you have any thoughts on public versus private blockchain?
Yes, absolutely. And if you don't mind, it just, for me, it's not about necessarily, and this is the way I look at things, it is not necessarily about advantages or disadvantages, right? It is more driven by the use case and the pain points that you're trying to tackle, right? They both have better fits for one another. So if in our case, right, for a distributed ledger repo platform, and probably other platforms like us that actually are tackling existing market processes, the repo market, right, is the lifeblood of institutions in terms of financing. You need to be deeply connected with existing market infrastructure. You need to abide by the regulatory framework, KYC, validating your counterparty. So in this type of use cases, which is the case of our platform, it makes more sense to have a permissioned environment where there's the technology provider or the administrator actually manages and conforms with the needs of the counterparties. Again, KYC, knowing who you're dealing with, validating the entities that are allowed to trade with each other, the ones that are not, right? So in those kind of, I would say, deeply ingrained market infrastructure platforms, you're better served with a permissioned environment. If you're talking about more of a I would call it more progressive, if that's the right word, a platform using decentralized finance, issuing new securities digitally, natively digital securities, or issuing any other type of digital asset, probably a permissionless environment would make more sense, because then you can start creating your new world by lending, transacting all those assets in a permissionless environment that anybody can transact and participate and exchange value, right? So I think it's more about what you're trying to create and what you're trying to solve for, rather than advantages and disadvantages to both. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I know, Vinod, in any research, have you come across anything around public versus private? Any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think the way which I was looking at it is, I think based on the use cases, the firm could adopt one or the other. I think what comes out is, how do you build an operating model around it? And how do you build a compliance function around it? How do you audit what's the securities and the cash movement is happening over public or private blockchains? Actually, I think that's where the key aspects which I'm looking at in those, to identify that what are the operating models which comes across, what are the functions. If you do it on a permission based, how do you control those? How do you access those? How do you audit those? And what are the compliance functions and the operations functions associated with it? Versus if you issue the securities on a native platform, end-to-end processing, multi-players coming onto the picture over here, that's completely a new spectrum of, I would say, an ecosystem being built on that side over here. I think the angle is more not a preference over one or the other, but trying to find out what should be built internally to monitor and to control those functions.
Okay, great. Yeah, all good points, Horatio and Vinod. All right, so next, one of the things we wanted to sort of touch upon, maybe not specifically for repos, but just generally with blockchain, there's a move certainly in the United States around shortening the settlement cycle again. It's gone from 3 to 2, and now they're, with the SEC is also looking at it, and there's some industry groups looking at sort of the benefits and risks around moving to a T+0 or T+1 sort of settlement cycle. I don't know, maybe I'll start with you, or Marina, actually, maybe I'll start with you. Have you come across any of the projects you're working on where you think that blockchain or DLT could help moving the settlement cycle to a shorter settlement cycle, T+0 or T+1, for those that are not there now?
To be honest, I think that's most likely blockchain will be used for the cash markets trading and clearing, because and for derivatives, where clearing it's a service, and in my view, it's unlikely to be replaced with the DLT, to be honest, in the near future. Because of its nature and how it's all organized and work.
Got it. And Horatio, any thoughts on it in some of the work you've been doing? Or?
Yes, I mean, I think that DLT or blockchain can certainly help or accelerate, as you see in the announcement, recent announcements, right? To get us to T+0, to T0. So we can, you know, the attributes of that technology can actually help us achieve that, right? A common data model, as I said, mutualized workflows, I would say velocity of securities, right? So it can certainly help get us there. What I want to cover, it is not the only way, right? It is not do or die, right, with DLT. It certainly helps. It certainly provides I would say, a more elegant way to achieve that than with current systems today. There's a lot of work to be done beyond DLT, but I think DLT can accelerate that and actually provides, as I said, an elegant way to solve for all those common data models, the mutualized workflow, interaction with various participants. Can you solve it with other systems today? Yeah, probably you can. But this is DLT provides a more elegant way to do it.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. You know, it is interesting too, because the SEC has reached out to the FIX organization as well around, hey, you know, what are the sort of obstacles or challenges in getting to T+0 or T+1? And I think they're looking at trying to get some feedback on, you know, what is the technology they can help fix, for example, maybe one way to achieve it if people use it. But I think, you know, what they're also looking at is, you know, does distributed ledger technology, is that something that can help? So I think, you know, it's on their mind at least. So Vinod, I don't know if you've had any, from a regulatory perspective, if you've seen any research or anything around sort of shorter settlement cycles where DLT might fit in, or has that not come up?
I think the way which the research is angling out, the feedback which I've received is you do a repo trading for a specific purpose. That means there's a need for the cash or the securities. So once the need has been identified, you don't want to wait for the next year for the need to get fulfilled. So you want the cash right now, today. So that's where the preference is more towards a T+0 settlement for the repo trading activities. Now, the movement which is happening in the US from T+2 to T+1 settlement would enhance the velocity of the collateral on the equity bilateral repo trading activities, I would say, because the securities would be available much sooner. If you do a trade today, the securities will be available tomorrow to do a bilateral equity repo transactions. And that's where I see the interconnections, indirect interconnections, I would say, from the initiative to the repo world.
Got it. Makes sense. Thanks. Okay. Along similar lines, I guess, you know, talking about, you know, sort of regulatory or shorter settlement cycles. There's also it's been raised around also, can blockchain DLT be involved in the next generation of sort of stock exchanges? And we touched upon that a little bit with, you know, potential regulatory oversight of some of these cryptocurrency things. But Horatio, I'll come back to you. Have you seen anything around, I mean, obviously you have your own platform, but from other stock exchanges, other platforms, that it's gonna, you think this is really gonna be the next generation? Do you think this is where it's going? Or as you said, you know, this is just one potential solution? Well,
yeah, similar to the T+0, right? It is one of the potential solutions, right? That you know, the new generation of exchanges or existing exchanges will leverage the technology to achieve the objectives and solve for the pain points that they want to achieve. It is not necessarily the only avenue, but it's certainly a very effective and actually, in our experience, a relatively low cost way of achieving those goals, right? So I think it will be it will be part of the technology stack going forward for those exchanges. What it can, and coming from the perspective of our own platform and Broadridge, what DLT can definitely do is whatever happens at the exchange, all the processes behind that market activity venue could be made much more efficient than it is today. So the total cost of transactions at those exchanges, by leveraging whatever happens underneath that exchange on a DLT platform, right, neutralizing workflows, etc., increasing velocity of securities, will make the transactions of those exchanges much more efficient, much more cost effective, right, regardless of whether those exchanges leverage DLT or not.
Got it. Perfect. We don't have too much time left. We do want to leave some time for questions. We do have a couple of questions. Horatio, there's a couple here for you. I'll just start with these. The first one is, Horatio, I believe the HQLAX initiative also states that they aim to mobilize collateral and improve velocity. Is it the HQLAX initiative complementary to Broadridge's platform, or is it a competitor?
That's a good question. So and I think HQLAX, Broadridge platform, and maybe one other out there, we're all solving for different pain points, right? Different use cases, different pain points. We are actually tackling the repo market, right? Creating efficiencies to it, giving financial flexibility. HQLAX is tackling improvement of capital of their clients by allowing the delivery versus delivery transactions to be more efficient through basket. So they're all very different pain points in it, in and of themselves. So there is, I see those as complementary, right? Because all these platforms can be tackling very deep pain points that have been out there for a while, and we're all tackling what we think is the most important thing for our clients. So just to summarize, yes, though these platforms are complementary, over time, I think as we evolve, there's going to be even more things that we all can tackle. So I think ultimately we will still be complementary to each other. And then when you start thinking about, okay, if they're complementary, which I believe they are, is how do you interoperate or actually connect to create a seamless world to our common clients?
Got it. Thanks. We have a couple more questions here. We have one here. I think this is probably all of us. I see the value of T+0 in repo. The money is needed now, but does T+0 in securities transaction not create liquidity and funding costs, eliminating the possibility of netting? So in the future, not the repo goes to T+0 real time and securities go to T+1 next day. So the question is, does it make sense to go to T+0 in repos and T+1 in securities? I know, Marina, maybe start with you. Do you have a view or?
Yeah, so it was the question in the Q&A section, right?
Yeah, so it's, they see the value of T+1 0, so they're suggesting the future is repo goes to T+0 and securities go to T+1 next day.
Well, it's kind of suggestion, and maybe that's one way how to do that. Like Horatio mentioned, there are different ways how to approach that. So in each case, we just need to evaluate how to do that in the better way.
Got it, right. Just
a comment. I would love to do a repo trade wherein I can get the cash today and I need to post the securities tomorrow, actually, as a collateral. But I think that's not the case which would ever happen.
Yeah.
I think the whole concept of the repo trading is that you get the cash today, you need to post the collateral against the cash. I don't think so there would be any lender who wants to be exposed for an overnight lending of a cash without a collateral. I think what we were referring to is once the repo, the need has been identified, that means I go down in the market and I ask for a cash. And then also at the same time, I would have the collateral available to be moved across to the counterparty so that the repo can be facilitated on the T+0. On the equity side, it was more with respect to the trading netting obligations, which gives a tremendous benefit to everyone in terms of reducing the cost of processing. That's why on the equity side, I think the T+1 makes more logical sense.
Got it, thanks. I think we're just about out of time. I think we probably have time for one more. So how do you solve the bandwidth problems? For blockchain data need to be synced to every node. That's a lot of traffic. If we get millions of trades every day, how do we keep up with the volume around bandwidth with blockchain? And do you have thoughts on it, or?
From our platform perspective, that is not an issue, right? The synchronization of nodes, we actually run, before actually going live, we actually run all our repo activity, which is a significant proportion, knowing that Broadridge has 19 of the 24 primary dealers on our platform. We basically run all that volume through our platform just to test the throughput of the platform, and that is certainly not a problem. So in terms of the throughput of maintaining, since it's a permissioned environment, right? If a permissioned environment reduces the consensus needs, so in terms of throughput, the ability to have the nodes be synced at all the time, that is not an issue. In terms of the storage, yes, for the storage of a lot of the transactions, you don't want to overblown your DLT environment with storing data, right? Which is very, it is not useful and it could slow it down. For the heavy storage, yes, you basically use off-chain storage that link to the chain as needed, right? But for the transactional perspective, bandwidth is not a problem. Throughput is not a problem.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I think we're actually out of time now. So I would like, thank the panelists. So Marina, Vinod, and Horatio, it was fantastic. Great information you guys were able to provide. If anyone wants more information about some of the Fix groups or some of the platforms that we talked about, whether the CME platform or Ratios or ExactPro, let us know, come back to Fix Organization. So again, thank the panelists, great discussion. And I don't know, Naomi, is there anything else from your perspective, from a closing perspective from Fix? Or are we good?
Yeah, thanks very much, Steve. I mean, I think we could have gone on for probably another hour at least. Some great questions coming in from the audience. Obviously, an interesting topic. I'd like to thank everybody for joining. To our expert panelists, our next FIXinar will be taking place in October and will be on Fix latest. We will also be having the final FIXinar, which should be in November, further date to follow. As Steve has already mentioned, we've got some great working groups that we are running. So if you're not a member of any of them or would like to get involved, please contact the Programme Office for more information. Thank you very much all for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.